Welcome to the primetime edition of Crypto Cove. It's great to have you all with me here tonight. And as I said, this is the primetime edition. We did a matinee edition of this same call earlier on in the day. So if you're here for that, then you pretty much know what we're doing here tonight. If you didn't, well, of course, you're in for a bit of a treat. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is Ethereum basics. But first, how are you all doing tonight?
Good, Hunter.
Great.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Alrighty. So with that, we'll go ahead and start. And I'll begin the presentation. You all can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Alrighty, we'll go ahead and start. Alrighty, and once again, you all, welcome to Crypto Cove. And yeah, definitely got an interesting presentation set for you all. Now, here's what we'll be talking about here tonight. We'll start out with what Ethereum actually is and why so many people consider it the foundation of the Web3 world. And from there, we'll step back and take a simple look at how blockchain technology works behind the scenes. After which, we'll get into some of the most important ideas in this space, smart contracts. These are programs that allow Ethereum to do much, much more than just send and receive currency. We will also talk about decentralized applications, which are tools and experiences built on top of these contracts. Next, we'll look at how Ethereum stays secure through a system called proof of stake, which replaced the older mining approach. More on that later. Then we'll touch on sidechains such as BSC, the one we use, which many communities use daily because they offer lower fees and faster transactions. We will also walk through the basics of wallets and personal security, because understanding how to protect your funds is just as important as understanding how Ethereum works. Finally, we'll cover all the benefits and all the risks so you walk away with a balanced view of the space before we wrap up with questions at the end. Now, my goal here tonight is to try and make each part clear and approachable so you feel comfortable and confident wherever you are in your crypto learning journey. So with that, we'll set off. Now, the first question that people probably have is, what is Ethereum? Ethereum is a digital platform that works like a global computer. Instead of one company owning the system, thousands of people around the world help run it. This allows developers to create programs called smart contracts that run automatically without a middleman. The currency of the network is called Ether, although you'd be forgiven if you just called it Ethereum. Most people would know what you're talking about if you're referring to the currency. People use Ether to pay for actions on Ethereum so the system stays orderly and fair. Ethereum is open for anyone to build on, which is why it has become the base layer for much of Web3. Applications for finance, gaming, art, identity, and much more rely on Ethereum because it gives them a way to run securely and transparently without depending on a single authority. Why Ethereum matters. Ethereum matters because it introduced something that the early crypto world just did not have: programmable money. Instead of only sending and receiving value, Ethereum lets people create agreements that carry themselves out automatically. These programs allow developers to build decentralized apps that do not rely on any one company or institution to stay online. If the network is running, the application is running. Simple as that. This opened the door to entirely new areas. DeFi, or decentralized finance, lets people borrow, lend, and trade without banks or any sorts of or any sort of intermediaries. NFTs allow digital items to have real ownership. Games built on Ethereum give players control over the items they earn. Identity projects help people own their online presence instead of signing it over to big platforms. All of this supports a more open version of the internet, where users and builders have real control. Ethereum gives anyone with an idea the ability to create without needing permission from a central gatekeeper. The story of Ethereum begins in 2014, when a young developer proposed the idea of a blockchain that could do more than move currency. He imagined a system that could run programs on-chain, giving people a way to automate agreements and build powerful applications. In 2015, the network officially launched. This was the moment smart contracts became real rather than theoretical. Developers around the world began experimenting and creating early projects. As the years passed, the ecosystem grew. By 2020, decentralized finance started taking off. People were lending, borrowing, trading, and earning interest without banks or brokers. Then came the merge in 2022. This event replaced Ethereum's old mining system with proof of stake, which made the network far more efficient and environmentally friendly. More on that in just a bit. Today, Ethereum serves as the backbone for thousands of applications across finance, gaming, art, and identity. It has evolved from an idea into one of the most important pieces of infrastructure in the Web3 world. Now, some of you may also be asking, what is a smart contract? Well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, no paper is involved, no ink is involved. A smart contract is simply a program that lives on the blockchain and runs exactly the way it was written. Once someone deploys a smart contract onto Ethereum, it cannot be altered. This makes it dependable because no one can quietly change the rules later on. These contracts activate on their own when certain conditions are met. If you're looking for a real-world analogy, you can think of it as like a digital vending machine. You put in a coin, press a button, and you get exactly what the machine is programmed to deliver. Notice that how other than you, no human was involved in that. Now, was there? That's part of what makes smart contracts so powerful. No human needs to stand there watching over it. Smart contracts remove the need for middlemen. They let people trade, borrow, lend, create art, play games, and interact with applications without relying on a company to approve the action. Many of the things people associate with Web3, such as DeFi platforms, NFT marketplaces like OpenSea, and blockchain-based games all exist because of these contracts. They are the building blocks of the Ethereum ecosystem. Now, let me ask you all, have any of you used PancakeSwap?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, what if I told you that through PancakeSwap, you interacted with a smart contract? You just might not have even known it at the time. All right, moving on. Of course, that also now begs the question of how Ethereum itself works now. Ethereum works through a large global network of validators. These are people who lock up some of their ether as a way to show commitments to keeping the network honest. Validators confirm transactions and add new blocks to the chain, which keeps everything moving along smoothly. Ethereum now uses a system called proof of stake. Instead of burning energy to mine coins like other blockchains like Bitcoin, Validators are chosen to create new blocks based on how much ether they have staked. This makes the network far more efficient while still keeping it secure. Whenever someone interacts with Ethereum, they use ether to pay a small fee called gas. Gas makes the network stay fair and orderly. It prevents spam, encourages responsible use, and helps prioritize transactions where many people are using the system all at once. Thanks to this shared infrastructure, anyone can send value, use applications, or deploy new smart contracts. Everything runs on a common foundation that no single entity controls. Ethereum supports a wide range of real-world uses. One of the biggest areas is decentralized finance, also called DeFi. These are financial tools that let people lend, borrow, earn interest, or swap tokens without any banks or brokers. Everything runs through smart contracts, which means anyone can participate. Another major use is NFTs, which give digital items real ownership. Artists can sell their work, gamers can own in-game items, and collectors can hold scarce digital goods. The idea is simple. If you own the token, you own the item. Games built on Ethereum and similar networks let players truly control what they earn. Instead of items living only inside a company's database, they belong to the player directly. This is a stark contrast to what some people would have you believe nowadays, where the future is that you'll own nothing and be happy. Wouldn't you all say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Identity is another growing area. People can create online identities they control themselves rather than depending on big platforms. This can support reputation systems, logins, and community memberships. Many communities, like pool funding, also use side chains such as Binance Smart Chain. These offer lower fees and faster transactions while still connecting back to the broader Web3 world. In fact, you all know how we often refer to Bitcoin as the grandfather of everything we do in cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Yeah.
If Bitcoin is our grandfather, then you can think of Ethereum as like our uncle, essentially. All these examples show how Ethereum goes far beyond currency. It is the foundation for applications and experiences that are open, transparent, and user-controlled. Of course, while Ethereum offers many strengths, we all know that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, just like anything in the world. There are risks to be aware of. The first is gas fees. When a lot of people are using the network at once, fees can rise, which makes simple actions more expensive, and sometimes much more expensive. I do remember some transactions several years ago that involved Ethereum that were upwards of $80 to $100 to give you some idea of how bad it can get. Thankfully, we now have scaling solutions to help combat that. And indeed, this is one reason why sidechains and scaling tools have become so popular. Another risk comes from smart contracts. Once a contract is deployed, it cannot be changed. Of course, some of you may have noticed that this can cut both ways, because if the code has a mistake in it, a bug or any sort of glitch, that then becomes permanent. Bugs or loopholes can sometimes lead to lost funds, which is why good audits and reviews matter. In fact, do you recall how the first iteration of the PML to PF token swap went?
Yes.
That failed because there was a bug in the smart contracts that allowed a third party, a ne'er-do-well to access the contract and drain the PML from it. So with that in mind, yeah, I definitely say that good audits and reviews matter. So it's definitely good that we have those now. Regulations are also still taking shape around the world. Governments view crypto in different ways, and rules may continue to shift as the space grows. Ethereum, like anything in crypto, also places responsibility on the user. If someone loses their private key or shares it by accident, they can lose access to their funds with no way to recover them. Keeping keys safe is one of the most important habits in crypto, and that goes double for your seed recovery phrase or recovery seed. Now, that's probably one of the most important points that you can take away from this meeting, if not the most important. If I lose my recovery phrase, I can't go to the CEO of Ethereum and ask for it back. Do any of you all know why?
Because there is no CEO.
That's right. There is no CEO of Ethereum. And even if there was, they'd probably say something like, wait, who are you? How do you get in here? Security, don't validate his parking. But yes, but with that in mind, there are also scams and unsafe projects out there because anyone can deploy smart contracts. Now, crypto, just like any sort of venture in the world, attracts all different kinds. So with that in mind, learning how to spot red flags is essential. Like, for example, how we've seen some clones of PancakeSwap that are actually poison smart contracts or sites built from the ground up meant to take your crypto. So that's definitely the sort of thing you have to watch out for. Finally, the price of Ether can move up and down quickly. These price swings can be exciting for some and stressful for others. Knowing these risks can help you use Ethereum wisely, and with confidence. To use Ethereum, just like any other cryptocurrency, you need a wallet. A wallet is not a physical item like you may be thinking about, and this graphic might suggest, but a digital tool that lets you send, receive, and store crypto. When you make a wallet, it generates two important pieces of information. The first is your public key, which creates your address. This is the part you can share safely with others so they can send you funds. The second is your private key. This is the secret part that proves you own the funds in your wallet. You should never, ever share it with anyone. If you're looking for a real-world analogy, you can think of your public key or your address as your email address. You can give it to people so that they can send you email. Whereas your private key is like your password for that email. And again, you should never, ever share that with anyone. Wallets come in different forms. Some are phone applications, which are quick and convenient. Others are hardware devices, which are small gadgets made for secure storage, like a Trezor, for instance. Both work well depending on what you need. In the Web3 world, your wallets can also act as your identity. It is how you can sign into applications, prove ownership of your assets, and interact with smart contracts. Keeping it safe is one of the most important parts of being in crypto. The future of Ethereum is shaped by constant improvement. Developers are always working on upgrades that make the network faster, smoother, and more affordable to use. These upgrades happen gradually, so the ecosystem stays stable while it grows. One major trend is the rise of rollups and other scaling tools. These solutions run transactions off of the main chain and then sell the results back onto Ethereum. If you're looking for a real world analogy, say you went to a bar and you knew you were probably going to order more than one drink, but you don't want to have to swipe your card every single time you order a drink now, do you? So what do you do then?
Sorry, I missed the question.
So
Run a
as far as a
tab.
real, yeah, you start a tab, exactly. So that's what roll-up is it's essentially you starting a tab on the blockchain. And once the night is over and you decide that you want to tab out, the way it works in the roll-ups is that you can roll up your transactions into a single transaction that's then broadcast on the main network. This approach reduces congestion and lowers costs, which makes applications feel more accessible. As the technology becomes easier to use, the apps built on top of Ethereum are becoming more and more user-friendly. Many projects now focus on simple interfaces and clean experiences, so crypto newcomers can join in without feeling overwhelmed. You will also see more activity in areas like digital identity, decentralized finance, and social applications. These fields are growing quickly because people want more control over their online lives. All of this and more pushes Ethereum even further into its role as a central piece of Web3 infrastructure. It does not replace sidechains and their networks. Instead, they all grow together and form a large, connected ecosystem. The future is bright and full of potential as the technology matures and becomes more accessible for everyday people. All right, we covered a lot today in a relatively short time, so let's bring it all together. We started with what Ethereum is and why it matters in the world of digital ownership and decentralized applications. Then we looked at how the blockchain works behind the scenes and how that shared ledger makes everything possible. We explored smart contracts and the role they play in running applications automatically. We also talked about the shift to proof of stake, which helps keep the system secure while reducing the energy needed to operate. From there, we looked at sidechains such as Binance Smart Chain and the many real-world use cases built on Ethereum, including finance, gaming, art, and identity. We also reviewed the benefits and the risks so you can see both sides of the coin and make informed decisions. At this point, you should have a clear starting point for navigating the Ethereum and Web3 world with confidence. You do not need to know everything at once. You only need a solid foundation, and that's exactly what we felt built here today. So with that, we're at the end of the presentation, and now we move into the Q&A session. Who would like to go first? No one? Did I do it again? Did I do my job too well?
Yeah. So I think of anything. No.
Alrighty, so with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the last section I want to cover here today. And I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Some of you may have noticed me talking about this earlier today, but I actually published an update to my tooling earlier today, and now we have a couple new RPC endpoint choices to choose from, and they're all segregated by which of the big three services that they're not dependent on. So the next time we have an outage like we saw with Cloudflare a little while ago, we will absolutely be prepared. So that was one of the items that some of you might have seen on my to-do list. So I'm absolutely quite happy to have that done and dusted. And I'll be ready to move on to more of what I have in store for this touring, for my tooling this year soon. All right, so with that being said, are there any questions, comments, anything of that nature? It can be about anything we talked about tonight or anything else for that matter. All righty then. We'll go ahead and close out, but just before we do, YouTube tells me that the majority of views I get on these videos come from people that aren't subscribed to the channel. Folks, for those of you that are listening here on YouTube, if you like the videos I put out and you like the memes I do, go ahead and do me a favor and subscribe, because that way that helps other members discover this channel. And indeed, that does help in the long run. If you like this meeting, you can go ahead and hit that button. If you didn't like it, well, you can hit that button, I guess. But with that in mind, we'll go ahead and stop the recording.